From the fiery depths of the underworld to the heart of a modern city, one warrior rises.
Ooh, dramatic.
Welcome back to Cosmic Comic Clips for another deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
Today, we're cracking open Absolute Wonder Woman #2
Okay.
and diving back into the story of our underworld-forged Diana.
Really picks up right where we left off.
So last time we saw her land in Gateway City and then face off against those monstrous Harbingers.
Totally.
This issue throws us right back into that action on the beaches of Gateway City, where we left off last time.
Yeah, Wonder Woman's locked in a fierce battle with Harbinger Prime and its minions.
Right, and we saw how powerful she was in the last issue.
Oh, yeah.
So what's happening in this battle?
Wonder Woman's wielding Nemesis her lasso.
Okay.
This isn't your typical lasso, though.
Right.
It inflicts pain based on past sins, almost like a karmic retribution.
Interesting.
She's also using a star-like shield, deflecting attacks and strategically taking down the Harbingers one by one.
Interesting. So she's not holding back, but is her goal to kill them?
It's interesting because you see her take down these powerful creatures, but she's very clearly not aiming to kill.
Okay.
She's protecting the city and repelling the invaders, but shows a restraint that's almost unexpected given her background and the ferocity of the creature she's fighting.
That is unexpected. She's from the underworld, raised by Circe. You'd think she'd be all about brute force, but it seems like there's more to her than that.
There definitely is. And right when you're starting to get a sense of this more complex side of her, the story shifts to a flashback. We're taken to the Wild Isle, Diana's underworld home.
Okay, so why the sudden flashback? What's the purpose of this shift in the story?
It provides a stark contrast to the battle-hardened warrior we see on the beach.
Gotcha.
We see a younger, more innocent Diana. She's encountering Steve Trevor for the first time, and there's a real sense of wonder and innocence as she interacts with him.
So it's showing us a different side of her before she became this powerful warrior.
Exactly. And it's a crucial moment because you see how she reacts to someone from outside her world. There's no fear or aggression, just a genuine curiosity and openness.
That makes sense. It helps us understand her actions in the present, her restraint, and her focus on protection. It's not just about winning a fight. It's about protecting life, even the lives of these monstrous creatures.
Right. It suggests that her values were shaped long before she ever set foot in Gateway City.
Okay, so we've got this incredible battle happening in the present and a flashback that gives us insight into Diana's past. What happens next?
The story shifts back to the present, back to Gateway City. The battle with the Harbingers is over, but now Wonder Woman faces a new challenge, the U.S. military.
Oh, so things are heating up on a different front.
They definitely are.
All right.
We're introduced to Commander Cole, who is leading the military response. And let's just say he's not too happy about having an underworld Wonder Woman operating on his turf.
I can imagine that might cause some tension.
It definitely does. He's aggressive, demanding, and embodies that classic military mindset of control and force.
And how does Wonder Woman react to this?
She stands her ground. She's respectful but firm, making it clear that she won't be controlled by him or the military. She's there to protect the city, and she'll do it her way.
So she's not backing down from anyone, God or man. This Wonder Woman is definitely not one to be trifled with. But she just defeated these terrifying Harbingers. So what could be worse than that?
Just as things seem to be settling down, a colossal creature emerges from the ocean. We're talking something massive, towering over buildings, something that looks like it could level the entire city.
Wow, that's quite the cliffhanger. Talk about ending on a high note.
It's a visual spectacle. You see this creature that dwarfs everything we've seen so far. It's monstrous, awe-inspiring, and terrifying all at the same time.
It sounds like Wonder Woman's going to need all her strength and compassion to face this new threat. Before we see how she handles this, a quick reminder to our listeners.
Yeah.
If you're loving this deep dive into Absolute Wonder Woman, don't forget to subscribe to Cosmic Comic Clips for more epic discussions.
Absolutely. Before we dive back into that cliffhanger.
I think it's worth taking a moment to appreciate the artwork in this issue. Hayden Sherman's style is incredible.
Absolutely. It's so captivating. You mentioned the colossal creature at the end, and even that reveal felt so different. It wasn't just a, bam, here's the monster moment. The art really built up the tension and suspense.
It did. There's this amazing blend of gritty realism and almost mythical imagery throughout the entire issue.
Right.
The way he depicts the underworld, the Harbingers, even Wonder Woman herself, It's all so visually striking.
And he doesn't shy away from those bold graphic lines, almost like etchings or woodcuts. It adds a whole other dimension to the storytelling.
It really does. And those dynamic panel layouts.
Oh, yeah.
He breaks away from the traditional grids, using these interesting geometric shapes and composition.
Oh, I noticed that especially during the flashback to the Wild Isle. Those panels felt so deliberate, almost like a Greek frieze.
Yeah.
Which makes sense considering Diana's background. Yes. And then you have that incredible spread near the end where the monster emerges from the ocean. The way the panels disappear and you're just left with this massive creature looming over everything. It's breathtaking.
It's like the monster is breaking free from the confines of the page.
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier, but can you tell me more about its design? What were your initial thoughts?
It's this fascinating mix of biological and mythological elements.
Okay.
You see these fleshy tentacles, a gaping maw filled with rows of teeth, and then these bone-like structures that give it this unsettling, almost skeletal appearance. It's like something Lovecraftian crossed with a creature from Greek mythology.
It's definitely not your typical giant monster. It feels ancient and powerful, like something that's been slumbering in the depths for centuries.
Exactly, and it raises the stakes for Wonder Woman. She's faced down demons and mythical beasts before, but this feels different, like a primal force of nature has been unleashed.
And speaking of things that are different, I have to ask about Diana's skeletal Pegasus. It's not exactly the majestic winged horse we're used to seeing.
It's a striking visual. This skeletal Pegasus is more menacing, almost spectral. It fits with the overall darker tone of this series, but it also adds a layer of complexity to Wonder Woman's character.
You see her riding this creature that's both powerful and unsettling. It reinforces the idea that she's not your typical Wonder Woman. She's a product of the underworld, shaped by its harsh realities.
Right, and I think that duality is what makes her so compelling. She's this force to be reckoned with, but she also has this inherent compassion, this desire to protect.
That's what we saw in her interactions with Steve Trevor in the flashback, and again in her confrontation with Commander Cole.
Absolutely. She's not afraid to challenge authority, especially when she sees it as a threat to the innocent. She refuses to play by the military's rules, their might makes right mentality.
And even in the midst of this clash with the military, she's still focused on protecting the city. She doesn't let her personal conflict with Cole distract her from the bigger picture.
Exactly, and I think that's what separates her from a lot of traditional heroes. She's not just reacting to threats, she's thinking strategically, considering the consequences of her actions.
And she's not afraid to go against the grain to challenge the status quo, even when it puts her at odds with those in power.
Which is why that flashback to her encounter with Steve Trevor is so important. It reminds us that her understanding of humanity isn't shaped by conflict or prejudice. She sees the individual, not the uniform, the person, not the power.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of places like the underworld, there can be kindness and compassion. And it's those qualities that make her such a compelling hero.
Well said. This issue isn't just about a battle between Wonder Woman and a giant monster. It's about a clash of ideologies, a struggle between different ways of seeing the world and approaching power.
And it's about a hero who is forging her own path, refusing to be defined by her origins or the expectations of others.
And let's not forget the visual storytelling. The art, the colors, the lettering, it all works together to create this immersive, unforgettable experience.
Absolutely. This is an issue you want to go back and look at again and again. There's always something new to discover.
Before we dive into the final act of this epic story, a quick reminder to our listeners. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Absolute Wonder Woman, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on Cosmic Comic Clips. We've got plenty more epic discussions to come.
Okay, so we left off with this city-sized monster emerging from the ocean, the military gearing up for a full-scale attack, and Wonder Woman kind of caught in the middle of it all.
Right.
Where do we go from here?
Well, the story shifts to the heart of Gateway City. We see the chaos and fear spreading as people try to flee from this colossal creature. And amidst all this pandemonium, we see Diana standing her ground. She's not panicking. She's not backing down. She's assessing the situation.
That calculated restraint we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
She's not just jumping into action without thinking things through.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes her approach to this threat so different from Commander Cole and the military. They're ready to unleash all their firepower, even if it means leveling half the city. But Diana is operating from a different set of principles.
She's not just trying to destroy the monster.
Right.
She's trying to protect the city and its people, even if that means putting herself in harm's way.
And that conflict, that clash of ideologies, is really at the heart of this issue. It's not just a battle between Wonder Woman and a monster. It's a battle between two very different ways of approaching power and responsibility.
So what does that battle look like? How does Wonder Woman actually confront this creature?
Well, without giving too much away, let's just say it's a visual spectacle. Sherman really outdoes himself in these final pages. The
Yeah.
scale, the action, the sheer sense of power and destruction, it's
Yeah.
all there. But what struck me most was the way he captured Diana's determination.
We've talked about her strength and compassion, but what does determination look like in this context?
It's in her eyes, in the set of her jaw, and the way she moves. She knows the odds are stacked against her, but she's not giving up. She's fighting for what she believes in, for the people she's sworn to protect, even if it means facing impossible odds.
It's almost like she's embodying that classic saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog.
Exactly. And that fight, that unwavering spirit, is what ultimately sets her apart. It's what makes her a hero.
So we've got this epic battle, this clash of ideologies, and this incredible display of heroism. What's the overall takeaway? What's the lasting impression this issue leaves you with?
Hope. Even amidst all the chaos and destruction, there's a glimmer of hope. And that hope is embodied in Diana, in her unwavering commitment to her values, her compassion, her strength, and her refusal to give up.
It's a powerful message, especially in a world that often feels consumed by darkness and division.
And that's the magic of a great story, isn't it? It can take us on these incredible journeys, introduce us to unforgettable characters, and leave us with something to think about long after we've closed the book.
So if our listeners are looking for a Wonder Woman story that challenges expectations, pushes boundaries, and reminds us of the power of hope, then Absolute Wonder Woman #2 is an absolute must-read.
Couldn't agree more. It's a story that stays with you. It's a story that makes you believe that even in the darkest of times, one person can make a difference.
And that wraps up another epic deep dive here on Cosmic Comic Clips. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Cosmic Comic Clips for more deep dives into the world of comics. Until next time, keep those pages turning.